The law school maintained a machine for their primary web server, and the library maintained a separate machine for their web server. In addition to that, each department had an intranet server as well. And much information was duplicated between the intranet servers, and users in one area did not know, to a large extent, that the other one existed. It was a surprise when they would walk by a machine and see the other intranet app, because they had just never been told about it. One of the problems that came with two separate networks, and for those of you familiar with NT networks, we both had NT, but we had no trust relationship, so we had two completely separate networks that did not talk to each other at all. The library maintains two CD towers full of CDs of California law. Most of the stuff is available on Lexis and Westlaw, but it's used by the librarians, especially for forms, because the CDs are full of forms and they're very easy to grab and print. As such, being in the library, they were available to the students in the student labs. The faculty, who could benefit from these on their desktop as a teaching tool and as a resource, could not get them. And so, because they didn't have access, they didn't integrate them into their teaching environment, so the students had no incentive to use these materials. So they sat largely unused on the lab machines and within the library, except for the librarians who did make quite efficient use of them. As I touched on earlier, we maintain two separate sets of staff. This led to the problem of who do I call? The faculty and staff tended to call who they felt most comfortable with. And with staff, we were able to refer them to an appropriate person in the other division. With faculty, we were instructed to help when asked. And so we did. For a while, a few years ago, about 5 years ago, I ended up being Internet Boy for a time. Faculty called up and said, "What is this thing called the Internet? Come down and show me." And so I went and gave him a tutorial. And then he told the other faculty. And as they discovered the Internet, I was the one that they told each other to call for that. And so I helped them. The end result of this was that faculty never really knew who to call with a problem. If it was an internet problem, I got the ring. If it was a problem with a word or application, they called someone else. And if they couldn't connect, or if there was a hardware problem, yet a third person was called. And a lot of the times, they didn't know the right person to call, so we would have to do the referring ourselves. It's no surprise, with all this confusion, that we had little communication between our departments, and we had no combined planning and vision for the future of the building, for IT. About 2 years ago, we, the library, started investigating wireless technology, like most schools, I guess. And we actually formed an alliance with our main campus to do a pilot project. We were the first deployment of wireless at UC Davis in production. We did this completely independently of the school. We didn't tell them that we were going to do it. We didn't ask if they wanted to be a part of it. And we didn't even ask if what we would do would blow up something they're doing. That's the state up until last year. Last summer, my counterpart in the law school was in a devastating accident, and it left her unable to work for about 7 months. So she was gone. At that time, her most experienced student assistant, they had two, and his responsibility, he was the care and feeding of the network, left. He graduated and got a job at a .com. I think he's unemployed right now, but so they went from a full staff and students to one staff member whose experience lay outside the care and feeding of a network, and one student who was brand new to IT and was unable to give them the kind of support they needed. This situation caused the deans to evaluate the needs of the school for IT, both to solve this present crisis that they were in, and to protect the school from future situations like this. So in fall of 2000, they merged us into one unit, and they administratively housed us under the library. I affectionately call this period of time my first nervous breakdown. We had a number of challenges, and my first challenge was to forget about the past. Prior to the merge, I worked under the library, and report to the deans and directors, and I had two jobs: make the library staff happy and make the students happy. And that was it. And then I was free to do the research and new technologies, bring them to the table, see if we could integrate them into the library environment. But that was pretty much my job description. 2 lines. Overnight, we had to make the deans happy, the faculty happy, the clinics happy, the staff of the law school. And I'd been there 10 years, and there were people I had to go introduce myself to. That's how bad I was. And they were spread across 14 departments in 3 physical locations. So all of a sudden we had multiple locations to worry about and the links between them. We had to maintain the law school network. It was Windows NT, as I said before. Now you know as much as I knew when I walked in there. Accounts, location of files, access permissions, I had no clue. And at the same time, we were told, one of the first things they said is, don't break anything. So learn it, but don't break it. And so I said, well, we'll work on that. We had to maintain the clients, as I said before, and a number of campus applications which we didn't use in the library. So we had really no experience with. The most difficult challenge, though, I think, was maintaining an elaborately constructed set of DOS databases that were in use, and it had been in use for a number of years there, and literally housed all student, faculty, and staff information. And they were mission critical, and they were breaking. And they were in DBase 4. And I think I was 6 when DBase 4 came out. So I didn't have any experience with that, but we had to do that too. And at the same time, I began designing the new combined network, integrating all the servers from the law school and the law library, putting them into one network and reassigning them to be more efficient. And then when we had free time, we did our regular jobs, keeping the students happy, the library happy. In winter of 2000, we actually moved to the new unified domain. And what we did was we renamed the law library domain to reflect a new integrated department. Largely political, but it was important, I think, to reflect the entire building being supported. After we did that, we added in the faculty in the law school staff workstations. We did a department at a time, making sure we didn't break any applications or their data or access to the data. And so for a while, we maintained 2 networks. We took down the law school servers as we could, moved the services into the new location. And in March of 2001, we actually finished. And we got the last server down and migrated, and my stomach ulcer started healing. So here we are. We're 1 year later, almost a year later, and the questions that we all asked, the deans and the directors and myself, before I came here was it worth it to do what we did? Or would it have been easier for them just to go out, hire a new crew, and continue the way we were? And I think we all agreed that it was worth it. We saw a tremendous gain in efficiency by removing the redundancies that are inherent in the 2 IT department structure. Here are some things that I noticed as we were living this past year. First of all, we removed the personnel redundancy. Like I said before, staff never knew who to call. And if they called you with a problem, and you were part of the library and you went to the law school, chances are you might not know how to solve certain problems if there were campus applications that my staff didn't know about. So by cross-training everybody, we've better leveraged our technical talent. And so now, no matter who gets the phone call, they're confident that they can go in and take care of the problem, or escalate it as needed if they need to, but they've got the training to help everyone. We're building a help desk. We haven't finished it yet, but we're actually doing that. And it's going to provide a single point of contact. So in the future, if I can train our users, we'll be able to have one number, one contact point, so they won't have to guess on who's going to handle their situation for them. We've saved redundancy on resources. We were very deep with server resources within the library and the law school. We had money, I guess, at the same time to start buying servers. And so we had a bunch of new powerful servers and a bunch that were end of life. And as I mentioned before, we had 4 web servers. Of course, we folded those together. That's probably the biggest example of efficiency and resources now. We've saved, and this leads to our next point, we've saved the cost of maintaining and upgrading and replacing server boxes, which are expensive and can be expensive. Under financial redundancy, we're purchasing now for an entire division, not departments. Not buying 1 or 2 NICs anymore and paying the price on that. We get better deals on hardware and software. But by far the biggest benefit of this is in our R&D, research and development. No longer are we inventing the wheel this week and next week hoping to discover fire, but we are planning for technology in a way that will encompass the entire building and move us all in the same direction. Next time we deploy it wireless or blow it out, everyone will know it. What are the cons that I've noticed? And this leads back to my model. We've got two major cons that I thought of when I was thinking of this presentation. And the first one's the 1 foot out, 1 foot in and 1 foot out, otherwise known as the hokey pokey model. And that's what it's felt like sometimes. This complicated dance between the dean's office and the library directors. How many people do you report to now? That actually was a question posed to me by the dean. It was in winter, and I was babbling to myself walking through the hall, thinking about something. And he saw me, and we chatted, and somehow we got steered onto this track of well, how's the reporting structure working? And he actually said, how many people do you report to? And I just stopped and think and count them up on my hands. I said 5. We've got 5 people to keep in the loop now, library directors and the deans. And while we are administratively under the library, for technology issues, I have to include the deans, and they have to know what's going on. And so keeping people in the loop at this kind of level is not efficient and takes a lot of time. And that's why I listed it as a con. There's a problem there. The other problem is money. I need more of it since this is recorded. The deans will probably watch it. But in addition to that, the chief problem is that in our school, and probably in a number of schools, money flows from the dean's office to the library. And this was our first year, of course, of combined IT. So the deans gave me an operating budget for money for law school issues. And so I had that pot. Now for the library, I had another pot of money to draw on for the library issues. So in a sense, we're not merged yet because I've got 2 sets of books and I've got 2 inventory sheets that I have to maintain. And so while I can purchase for the entire building, I've got to worry about what fund, and that's something I never had to worry about. But those are concerns. Those are 2 issues. So where are we going? Where's our, at Davis at least, where's our future? Do we continue? And I mentioned this earlier. I think we all feel like there's no way that we can go back because the benefits far outweigh the problems that we have. And hopefully we can solve these problems. So do we continue? Of course we will in this way. The benefits are just too tremendous. The gains are too large to split it apart. The other question for our future, at least at Davis, is where will IT live? I told you my model is kind of 1 foot in, 1 foot out. And I do feel sometimes like I am being pulled apart because while we are one division serving everybody, there are those issues. Whether we stay in the library, though, or whether we go out of the library, which has been proposed, to me is largely a non-issue. Because what matters to me as an IT director is that we have a talented staff and we have the resources and training to do our jobs. And as long as we have that, where we live administratively won't affect, I don't think, the quality of service we can provide and the support we deliver to our users. And that's it for me. Thank you.
Stephen?
Yes.
How many staff do you have reporting to you now?
We have a staff of 5.5. The woman who was injured is working her way back to full-time. And so we went from 4 to, we will be eventually 6. We hired a full-time webmaster, and we hired a technical support client as well. Did you want to save the questions till the end, or I just don't want to take up all the time?
You want to through the presentation, we hope that we do have time. One thing the 3 of us had always discussed is we don't have enough time to just discuss among ourselves what is going on in our shops. Where are you? What has worked for you? What hasn't worked? Because we're all sort of there, we're all sort of fumbling, and we'd like to hear from everybody to see work on what works for you and what doesn't. Old technology. I knew I was taking a chance by using this opening theme, and I apologize at least to Tim Tarvin, who I know has seen it 3 or 4 times. I'm either hooked on this movie or hooked on the music or something, but I've used it throughout many, many years for many, many different purposes. I can remember 25 years ago, not quite 25 years ago, but over 20 years ago, I used it in the library school presentation when I was comparing the literature of Franz Kafka with the philosophy of Friedrich Nietzsche. The tie-in there was the theme of Wagner's theme of Also sprach die Zarathustra, the name of Nietzsche's book. Today I think perhaps the 2001 is the tie-in. I couldn't resist using it to talk about technology at a technology conference, and I've never felt it was more appropriate. When I first thought about doing this program, I envisioned myself putting my head inside the mouth of a lion, and I envisioned legions of information and technology people employed outside of the library, ready to bite my head off as a librarian. And I didn't really like that. I wasn't very comfortable. I decided I should move on and think about more friendly lions, and I thought about some lions back from my childhood. When I grew up in New York, the lions outside of the 42nd Street and 5th Avenue Library guarding that magnificent collection. Please forgive the Mets cap on the lion on the left. That's my technology staff jab at me. Born and raised in the Bronx, I'm an avid Yankee fan. Can't get them out of my DNA, so they didn't pick the Yankee hat, they picked the Met hat. When I was thinking about the lions in a more friendly environment, I was thinking about that library again. I thought about another film clip that sort of shows us an old technology that librarians have been using, but we have since gone away from. funny, that scene, and not technology, is what got us away from the catalog. I thought about the early CALI meetings, again, this legion of folks now, and when I started coming to CALI, most of the technology folks in the law school were in the library. Very few people outside of the library dealt with technology. If they did, it might have been it might have been to change the. Oh, come on. This would work. If people were using technology, it might have been to change the ribbon in the Selectric Typewriter. It may have been to order a report from the registrar, maybe some class grades or class rosters for somebody across campus. Those reports were mysteriously reproduced, and then they just as mysteriously appeared on our desks 3 or 4 or 5 days later, not through email, but through old-fashioned campus mail. All right. The gist of my talk, and I'm not going to do it here, is that law schools have to provide appropriate information in appropriate formats, appropriate users, at appropriate times. The information technology is used throughout the law school curriculum. We use a lot more of it today than we did years ago. We use more electricity, we use more air conditioning, we use more light, we use more technology. That technology has to be managed. We can't just, it's critical. As Steve said, we can't just ignore it, it's not going away. I believe strongly in order to handle these significant personnel resources, financial resources, that we centralize the management of it. And I don't think there'd be much disagreement among us in this room or among us at the CALI conference or among most people practicing legal education today. I think most of us would say, yeah, centralizing it probably makes more sense. I take a further step and believe that because librarians have been managing information for centuries, that central management belongs within the library. Now I have to add a caveat, and that is I have seen information technology models that worked where they were managed outside of the library. I wouldn't do it that way myself. I wouldn't recommend it. I feel strongly it belongs in the library, but I have seen it work outside the library, and I wouldn't throw a monkey wrench into it just because I think it belongs in the library. I have mentors, men and women who have taught me many, many things over many, many years who disagree with me and say, I've got enough on my plate. I don't need that too. You know, that technology stuff, keep it away. I say shame on them. I really do. I feel, I don't know if it's the time of their careers or what they do have on their plate, idiosyncrasies that they have, maybe what's going on at their shop, but for one reason or another, they're not ready to take the technology, and I really do feel we have to embrace this technology. It's information management. That is what we're doing. Information are us, and we've got to continue doing it. It's not time to play possum, roll over, and let someone else say, okay, I've taken it this far. It's your turn now. Librarians have been dealing with one technological breakthrough after another. We've organized oral information, written, audio, video, electronic, and again, not for years, not for decades, not for scores of years, but for centuries we have been managing information and the technology it brings. First, there were the stories that we told one another. Then came stone. Then came scrolls. The monks chipped in a little bit. and then the first Xerox machine. Case reporters, loose sleeves, pocket parts, newsprints, microcards, microfiche, microfilm, ultrafiche, punch cards, 8-inch, 5 1/4-inch, 3.5-inch floppy disk, zip disk, reel-to-reel 8-track cassette audio tapes, 8 16mm films, reel-to-reel Betamax, VHS, compact VHS, and 8mm cassette audio tapes, video tapes, video disc, compact video disc, and digital video discs. I love it. There's many more of them, but PDF, MIDI, BMP, EXE, INI, DVF, HDM, PPT, PBS, the ever favorite POT, MIDI, MP3, JPEG, MPEG, elemental PPEG files. Telefax, HTTP, URL, Gopher, and the World Wide Web. We've been doing this a long, long time. When I realized, when I started looking at this question, saying, well, it belongs in the library, centralized and stick in the library, I realized there really was 2 questions. Should we centralize it at all, and then where do you put it? And again, I think most of us would agree that there are savings for centralizing it. And again, my personal preference is to put it in the library, although I understand now why some people might not. Well, let's take a look at how we use information in the law school. Some of us use information to administer, to bring the law school, to another point in time, to another place. Some of us use technology to teach. Some of us, the students in particular, use technology to learn, and some people to research. And actually, many of us use technology for a piece of all of these purposes. Who uses the technology? Our main constituents, the administration, staff, the deans, the committee chairs, the decision makers use data to help move the law school forward. Teachers use information, and sometimes that's technologically delivered, to expand their classroom. We've gotten past the chisel and the stone. We have more tools today. We deliver those tools for a better teaching product. The learners, the students use technology to take in that information, to process it, and to better internalize it. And researchers, we're most familiar with this probably because Lexis and Westlaw being around for so many years, but researchers certainly use information and the technology, information technology, to more efficiently research. Let's take our administrator for a second. Perhaps our dean needs grade reports or class profiles, bar results. Give me that bar results by first-time takers and repeat takers. I need it broken down. How do we respond to that? Once in a row. How do we respond? Well, a lot of that determines where we're from. What is the culture that we're in? We may just simply deliver the required data. You want a report? Here it is, hard copy printed out for you. We might send it via email. We might put it up on a web page. We deliver the information. We may turn around and install appropriate software, saying, you know what, if you had access on your data, and your data in the access database on your desktop, you could do your own reports. We might train the appropriate people to run appropriate software so they could not only generate this report that they need this week, but perhaps next month's reports, next year's reports, or perhaps some reports that they would start thinking could be useful now that they have the software and material on their desk. The software might be off the shelf, something we purchase, or it might be something that we design and put on the machine. We maintain the infrastructure. We identify appropriate resources. We train people how to use those resources. And we also do some consulting and answer questions. Instructors. We may want to provide appropriate media services for an instructor. Now, it may be in the ceiling. It may be under the desk. Or it may be in many law schools I still see, including Arkansas. I've got a couple of those in the ceiling. We're rolling down the aisle with an AV card, with a VCR and a TV set and a monitor. We're rolling it into the classrooms. An instructor may want us to repackage, or they may want to repackage their lesson plan. I heard about this presentation software type stuff. What is it? And some of them are good enough that if we load it on their machines at home or in the office, they might run through a tutorial and start playing and come up with a PowerPoint presentation for one or two of their classes. Now, other instructors are going to require some hand-holding and some training. Still others are going to need more hand-holding and more training. Still others more training, and still others are not trainable. There are going to be some that are trainable, but are not going to want to learn. They'd be happy to sit here and learn how to use this mouse, like I'm trying to do, and push the buttons and make it work. But they're not ever going to go take their lesson plans and put it up. They don't have the time, they don't have the inclination, they don't have the interest, they don't have whatever. But for one reason or another, they're not going to learn the software. We're going to need staff that takes the raw materials, their class notes or whatever, and delivers the product to them. We maintain the infrastructure, we identify appropriate resources, we train people to use those resources, we also answer questions. Students primarily come to us with research assistants. They need passwords to get onto Lotus or something. But they also study aids. They want passwords to get onto CALI and use those lessons. A lot of the questions we have from students are configuring their personal equipment. How do I plug into the network? Or what wireless card do I need to get into the law school network? Should I get a PC or should I get a laptop? What kind of modem should I get? How much RAM? Are you a Windows shop? Are you WordPerfect? How come you're not the other one anyway? And why doesn't my zip drive that I've had since kindergarten played at the beach with all summer in the sand, how come that doesn't work today? We also train the students. We train them how to research. We train them how to learn. We train them how to use CALI and how to study lessons. Again, we maintain the infrastructure. We identify appropriate resources. We train people to use those resources. And we also consult and answer questions. Everybody, our deans, our administrators, our students, our faculty members, staff members, use the information technology. We wouldn't be here today talking about it if it wasn't pervasive. We have to maintain that infrastructure. Now, we may differ what our infrastructures are, what we have going on in our shop. But there are a few things that go into infrastructure I think we can agree on. Access to the internet, email, web pages, access to the library systems, resources that are out there, information resources, the library catalogs, including library catalogs, library holdings, audio-visual, again, in the ceiling or wheeling down the cart, consulting, just talking to people about technology. Courtrooms of the future. You know, it's about time we start preparing our students for the courtrooms that we think they're going to see pretty soon down the road. The infrastructure and maintenance. We can't forget about this infrastructure. It's not like we build it and let it go away. We have to maintain it. It requires a network of hardware, software, people, staffing that we often forget about, instruction, training, and support. What kind of hardware do we have? How do we use it? What kind of software do we have? How do we use it? What kind of people do we have? Who do we use? Who do we call? And again, the production, this is what I need. I've got to come back and get it. Research labs, security systems, local flavors. I know at least, and maybe more of you, but I know at least one gentleman in the room that has to deal with telephone throughout the law school. Again, we maintain this infrastructure, we find appropriate resources, we train people to use those appropriate resources, and we also answer questions. To sum up, here's another clip. This is from also the beginning of the movie. And the bone, I think, can symbolize many things, and perhaps it's the information. This is one of the early information providers, and I can't find my name. And doesn't matter.
Is there a mouse in this?
taken technology, we haven't thrown it away. We've been using it, and information throughout the centuries, and it's brought us from here to there. I'll leave you with. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Jeff Wilbur with Stetson. I'll get this going here. And get mine going. I'll give the TrackMan a shot. If not, I'll bail on it. Like I said, my name is Jeff Wilbur. I'm with Stetson College of Law in St. Pete, Florida. As you can see by our pretty little picture, we're our own complete campus, and we have lots of cool old buildings and things here and there intermixed with a bunch of new ones. So I came on board right in 1994. We started talking about this in 1993. When in 93, 94, they really didn't have anything on campus. They had a couple of XTs in the back room and a couple printers hooked up. A couple of these same leading-edge XTs hooked up in a few of the offices that they would occasionally, on a good day, if there were no clouds around, dial into our main university in DeLand. We're also the lightning capital of the world down there. Like I said, I was hired, and in 1994 I came on board to create the IS department. There was really, like I said, just a few librarians attempting to pitch in with very meager resources. I was hired to build a network. Again, right away in early 94 we brought in the internet, and as everybody knows now, that's kind of taken over the law schools, kind of grown into its own thing. And when we first started, my department was underneath the law librarian. The law librarian was actually the director of information systems as well as the law librarian, and I was the IS manager, even when it was just me. I managed myself. And it started from there. In the beginning, like I said, we worked with the law librarian. Professor Woodard was a fine gentleman. He's very recently retired. But we worked very hard, and he taught me an awful lot. It was a big job to secure funding. Carving this right out of the middle of the law school, as many of you know, you take a lot of money away from a lot of different things, and a lot of things that people are used to. We cut travel way back, which didn't please a lot of folks. Like I said, we had to actually develop a department. As many of you know, carving a department out of the school, finding space is often difficult. Getting people, again, the resources. I guess it really comes down to money, but also the clout. That was a bit of a problem at first for us, too. After the first couple of years, we moved out of the library. For the last 5 years, we've been in our own office space, separate from the library, even though we were still part of the library. And from early on, we worked like madmen to develop our infrastructure. We were very fortunate that our dean really came through with the money. Dean Moody came on board about the same time I did, and she knew right off the bat that we weren't going to play games with IS. One of the other main reasons I was hired was that we were getting ready to build this new library. You saw it in the first picture, but right there it's just dreams. Stetson knew when they were hiring me that we were getting ready to build a new $12 or $13 million library. We began planning for it right away when I first came on board. We started looking at drawings and talking with architects and engineers. And again, we just knew that we were going to go world class. We broke ground on it in spring of 1997, and we had it up and running over the summer of 98. One of my big challenges was getting the rest of the campus wired and having a network and everything in place to be worthy of that building. We didn't want to just suddenly pop out that kind of structure and say let's start playing with computers. One of the other things that we started doing when that came along was we instituted a laptop requirement. In the spring of '98, when right before we opened the library, we started our first group of students that they all had to have their own laptops coming in. We tried various ways of configuring them. We looked at a lot of the different models. Richmond and I'm not sure who else was one of the only folks that were doing it when we started, and we were thinking about it. But I didn't like the way they were mailing people's laptops in, and they seemed to have an awful lot of trouble at first. But configuring a couple hundred laptops right off the bat is not a lot of fun. We tried it in labs. We tried it during R&W. We've come down to where I do a big dog and pony show with a bunch of my student assistants and my staff in one of our classrooms that's enabled like this. And we generally do it in 2 sessions where we'll do pass out email addresses and passwords and tour them around the network, show them a lot of things, and then we do the other half of them in a room like this where we slam them on the network, get them running. We don't quite lock the doors and not let them out until they're done, but we're doing about 75 of them in an hour and 15 to an hour and 20 minutes, which I have a very well-trained staff. They work hard, and it's my own little miracle 3 times a year. Let's see, we also, at that point, we took on computer exams. Part of where I was going with this is that, we're a big part of orientation now, and it's having all the students having a laptop and running is very important. We started computer exams in 1997, and computer exams, as most of you know, ExamSoft started out as Examinator. On a lot of us, has just grown. They don't want blue books anymore if they don't have to. We now have to proctor almost all exams. I think we had 400 or 500 exams this last time on the computers. So ExamSoft's making their money off of us. And actually, that's turned into its own little monster. I don't know, is anyone running the new 6.0, where it's a lot of fun to go out and download and register and re-register, and it's easy for them to mess up? Well, like I said, it's a lot of fun. This is a fuzzy picture. It's a little smaller. I blew it up on this one, but that's our new law library that is complete. Justice Ginsburg came and helped us dedicate it back in '98, and it's a heck of a structure. People love it. The students are real happy with it. Let's see, major projects along the way. We've renovated all of our classrooms. In fact, my very last one is going to be started Monday or Tuesday. I've had my guys, we put in multimedia gear like this, but the last one where we're running copper and electricity and fixing up the desktops should be done for fall classes. We've put, like I said, we've put projectors and cameras and built video conferencing into all the classrooms. We're starting to do a lot with our main campus, back and forth with the land. We've been calling various folks to do interesting things. Along the way, we've also absorbed AV. We had an AV department in the library for many, many years, but now that all the classrooms have video, sound, you can't get 3 people together anymore without hooking up a PowerPoint and or recording it. And it was a real stress on the AV folks, and they just they weren't really up for the job computer-wise and didn't want to be. And as they faded out, we've pretty much absorbed all their duties. And like I said, many years down the road here, we are buried in large web projects, mail projects, lists. We're running over 100 lists right now. So we've grown. Again, in our 8th year, we've done a whole bunch of projects. We've done a lot of construction. I really enjoy that. I've enjoyed all the remodeling. We've converted a lot of non-believers, as many of you know. Sometimes the law faculty, the law in the past hasn't really lent itself to computers, I should say, instruction. As Glenn was saying, a lot of our folks just don't have the time or the inclination to put all their courses up online. And as IS folks, who are we to tell them how to teach law anyway? We support a lot of federal and state internship programs. I have labs and programs in Clearwater, Tampa, St. Pete. We've got a ton of stuff in a really nice new federal courthouse building in downtown Tampa. People live and die by our stuff now. It's just, a few short years later where we couldn't get them online. We couldn't hardly get them to do anything with it. Now, if they're down for 10 minutes, they want my home phone number on Sunday, and I better be on the way back in. Something else that is a spin-off of all this, we have a new publications department. Our dean has hired some high-powered publications and marketing people, aside from our college relations and alumni folks, and they're spending an awful lot of time looking at the web. It's not just It's not just us running around begging for content anymore like it was a few years ago. We have a new web committee, and they are serious. Again, a few years ago when we were first putting up webs, I've trained every webmaster we've had. In fact, my wife and I, we were going through HTML for Dummies with our second and third ones a few years ago to get them off the ground. And now our web committee is they're incredibly upset that our dean's not ready to write a $125,000 to $150,000 check to get a consultant in here and really come and give us some more flash. Which I sure hope we're not going to do. I don't think we will. But as I'm also saying, every department is now very serious about what they have on the web. They're all claiming to live and die by what we have on the web or what we don't have on the web, whether it's admissions or CLE or financial aid. If it's not there and it's not the best thing they've ever had, they might as well shut down and go home. Okay, as far as my project goes, as to why I believe we're on the outside is, I was very fortunate the college hired me and let me build them a world-class network. The dean and everybody came through with the money. We didn't play games. Actually, I think probably the most important thing, aside from the money, was the long-term guidance and support from Professor Woodard. Aside from being a true gentleman and a heck of an attorney, he is the political master. I would have failed had I gone in there to do this by myself with all the different factions lined up against me, taking all this money away from long-term projects. We would not be anywhere near where we are today if it was not for how crafty Professor Woodard is. Basically, we have outgrown the library. So we started out underneath there, but we crossed too many borders and too many lines. I think maybe it's just part of our special circumstances, but our main university is in Daytona. We're in St. Petersburg. That's across the state, several hundred miles away. And actually, sometimes they act like we're not even there. They're basically just my ISP. And actually, I wish I had my own, because if I was controlling the money, I'd get a little better service out of them. But being a separate campus, we have everything. Our own business office, admissions, financial aid, registrar, alumni, all of the data has been locally on our campus for years. Current plans, we're starting to build again. We're getting ready to build a really fancy new student life and career services, resource, and fitness center. They don't know what they want to call it yet. But it's going to be big and it's going to be cool, and we're breaking ground on that in August. Money's lined up, contractors are hired. The bar has recently approved a part-time program for us in Tampa. I don't know if anyone was watching in the news how FAMU was looking for a new home in Florida. Well, some of the property in Tampa that they turned their nose up at, I think we're going to get. So what else are we doing? We're redoing our fancy printing. A few years ago, we went to a vendor card system. Really upgraded our printing for everybody. We've been very, very happy with it. But we're now rolling out of it again. And one of the big things I'm pushing, we're trying to get this to go across the board. We're going to institute it in the library at first, as they are willing to work with us more. Is a new smart card system. We're dumping a bunch of our printers and going to the copiers. We're going to institute color copying and web-enabled printing, where you can... Everybody out there who's upgraded to 2000, but some of the things you can leverage. We're going to be able to have them set up their printers from a click on a web page, be able to send jobs through to our queue from anywhere on the net very simply, and then go in securely, swipe their smart card, and print it out on a very high-speed copier. As many of you do know, HP printing has always been nice, but it's expensive. We have to have the copiers in the library anyway, so if we can dump the HP printing, we're going to see how it goes. We're also we're upgrading our mail in a serious way this summer. We're going to upgrade our web mail to the version of 2000 webmail, which offers a lot more functionality. We've been very happy with Exchange over the years, but I've been working to push everything I can out to the IP and the internet side of the house, trying to get away from the netware and things. And as many of you know, I've heard lots of people even last year and the last couple of years moaning and groaning about Banner, we're up to our eyeballs in a banner conversion, and we're about there. We've had the business offices up, financial aid is up and running like a watch, admissions is about there. They're actually using it still in parallel with their old system, and I think they're probably ready to cut off the old system, but that's just a comfort factor that we're going to have to work on when I get back. As Glenn was also saying, we're absorbing telephony. As of June 1, aside from being promoted from IS manager to director in the department, it was officially pulled out from underneath the library, and we report to the dean's office, was I hired a full-time phone tech. And we've been doing some phone things on our own. Our phone system is really a couple of big computers, and after a couple of really bad crashes, and our vendors went, we went and we rescued it 2 times in a row and put them onto our boxes and saved all our data and all our voicemail and stuff. So maybe we shouldn't have done that, but phones are now ours. Something else that, again, I think is a problem maybe with people in the library or having a department just in the library, at least in our school, and the few folks that I deal with close enough to know them, there's no way the law school, at least for us, is going to let the library run the show. Not at all. At least in our environment, they're close to the bottom of the totem pole, and I don't know why, because I think they're the ones that are really delivering the goods. But all computer purchases are now funded through a special projects budget. We took all of the individual computer budgets away over the last few years. They've been consolidated basically now up to the dean's office, and we do a continuing analysis of all the departments, figure out what they're doing, where they're going to go, and we propose what it is we're going to do next year, what it is we need to do to maintain, and basically we all talk about it and decide what we're going to do. We had a real bad problem with ownership when I first came on board here. The few computers that were on campus had been purchased out of other funds. People's leftover travel budget money, or they gave up some books and bought an XT or 2, and that really just doesn't work in a centralized environment, or to keep it all running. You can't do, let CALI do whatever the heck they want to do, and same thing with the other departments. The one thing that I am having trouble with, and that I'm trying to sell to the administration, is the maintenance of this stuff. I mean, if we decide that we're going to have to maintain a certain level of quality, and we're going to have to roll out a certain amount of equipment every 3 years, then we need to budget for it and get over it and just do it. We can't keep going and having to beg every couple of years that it's time to upgrade the library, it's now time to upgrade admissions. And people just need to know and like to be on a schedule. Let's see. That's it. We wanted to hurry up because we wanted to talk about this some more. Because like Glenn was saying, most of us are in the same position. I mean, we've all grown this out of nothing. A lot of the places where it works in the library I feel is where there wasn't anybody else to do the job. Thank you.